everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Legends of Tomorrow podcast. We're up to episode 12, and today we'll be talking about the Arrow and Flash crossover. So I'm here with Gregg today. What's going on? Are you excited to talk about this episode, or two episodes?
Yes, I am. It's going well, and they were both really entertaining episodes. The first one was really funny and did a good job building everything up, and the second one was definitely more emotional.
Yeah. All right, so we're actually going to, divide this in parts. We'll talk about part one first, then we'll go into part two, and then we'll go into final verdict and what we thought about it overall. So we're going to talk about certain sections of the episodes. But actually, before we do that, we have a few news pieces, Legends of Tomorrow related, to talk about. So we have the news Legends of Tomorrow trailer, which came out I want to say 2 weeks ago, but we haven't had a podcast. So obviously we're going to talk about the trailer. And of course, we're excited for Legends of Tomorrow. We've been discussing this show for months, and we've been discussing it without having a lot of information and, of course, a lot of footage. And now, finally, when we get the second trailer, I am even more excited for this show. I was really pumped. It really does look like a movie, honestly, and it's great to see these heroes together. I like the time travel aspect. I thought the action was really well done. So I was really impressed with this trailer. How about you, Gregg?
Yeah, it delivered the same kind of positives as the first trailer did, which is kind of just like doing these small scenes that are focused purely on certain characters, and they're divided with action scenes and full of even more action scenes, and there's a little banter in between it. It's a good way to sell people on it. It makes it look like an action-packed show. It tells you the super basics about each character and a little bit of the overall premise. So it's enough to really get you interested and make you want to see more.
Yeah, I actually like this trailer even more than the first, which I think you're supposed to, because the first is they literally just threw in footage and said, this is what our show is kind of going to be about. And now we finally get this trailer. It's this is what our show really is about. And yeah, we actually have a release date now, which it is in January, which is exciting. It's on Thursday. So you have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of DC TV, and technically Monday with Gotham and Supergirl. So that's going to be fun for us to talk about and review and have to cover all of it. But I'm actually very, very excited for this to be on Thursday rather than another day. Rather than Monday, that'd be a killer.
Yeah, one thing that I did forget to mention about the trailer, though, there's a very, very, very quick scene of Captain Cold having a more quiet moment with a kid. So it seems like he will meet his younger self. And given how well they expanded on Captain Cold's origin over in the Flash, I think that has the potential to be really powerful.
Yeah, I think that could be a very powerful scene too. Actually, pre-show we were talking about this. I kind of want Golden Glider to be on the show, because as much as I hope they develop Heatwave, I feel like the Golden Glider sister-brother relationship would maybe have more influence in the show. But hopefully, we'll get to see some really good Heatwave stuff in the show. But after seeing that flashback, I'm I want to see Golden Glider. When are you going to use her more?
Isn't there a rumor that they're going to kind of circulate in some characters? There was a rumor about Constantine potentially being in it. I haven't read those.
Constantine, he'll be a season 2 character. I think they might make this is going to be a time travel season. Maybe they'll make season 2 a magic season and add Constantine, Zatanna, have those type of characters.
That would be cool.
Yeah, so that is our trailer talk. And one last news piece we're going to talk about with Legends is that, I think it was today or yesterday, whenever you're hearing this, it was announced that Cisco will appear on Legends of Tomorrow. He won't be an official member of the team, but I think he's going to be in an episode or two, which makes sense after this episode. Obviously, Cisco's very close to Kendra. So I think it's a character that makes sense. We also know that Laurel's going to appear in an episode, Oliver, Flash, and who knows who else. I'm sure other people will too, but Cisco makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, more Cisco all the time, please. Everywhere and anywhere.
On every show.
Cisco's great. Yeah, no, just I love Cisco for the same reason I love Detective Joe West. I think Carlos Valdez, and Jesse Martin are both terrific actors who can sell, emotion, comedy, and anything else that's in the script extremely well. They can make you laugh one minute, they can make you want to cry the next minute. They're great actors, and I definitely want to see more of both of them.
Yeah, definitely. I love both actors also. So let's actually move into the Flash Part 1 episode of the crossover, which is our main discussion for the episode. Again, like I said, we're going to go through points for this episode. And the first point I want to talk about is Hawkman and Hawkgirl's story, because that is such a big part of the episode, is learning more about their history, introducing Hawkman. And I've been enjoying Kendra for the most part for Hawkgirl. I still don't feel like we know enough about the character for me to fully care about their story. I hope that comes into Legends of Tomorrow. I like her relationship a lot with Cisco, and this kind of love triangle between her, Cisco, and Hawkman I think is really interesting. And I'm usually not a big fan of love triangles, but at least this is something different. And it's like, oh, well, Destiny or someone I met a couple of weeks ago. But you see, obviously has really good chemistry. And I'm trying to think of only part 1 and not think about part 2 right now, because it's kind of confusing. It all does mesh together.
Poor Cisco. He has such bad luck with the relationships. Someone literally swooped in and took her away from him. I mean, wow. Feel bad for the guy.
I know.
He's so lovable.
Love.
Yeah. Ah, poor Cisco.
I know. It's such a shame. And then we see it even more in part 2. It's just like, they're Destiny. What do I have?
Yeah, he has amazing hair with that Cisco conditioner.
He does.
That's what he
I
has.
love that comment. That whole interaction was so much fun. And Castilla had hated her name. It's like, oh, I like Speedy. It's like, oh, I could come up with a better name than that. And it's like, oh well, maybe you should cut your hair. It's like, yes, snark attack right there. I love it. So I need to know what conditioner. I don't want to say Carlos uses, but yes, Carlos also. But what Cisco uses in the show.
It's CW conditioner. That's how everyone looks so good in those shows.
Exactly. So going back to Hawkgirl and Hawkman, I thought it was a pretty good introduction, and I like that they focused only on them and weren't like, hey, let's introduce everyone in Legends of Tomorrow into this one episode. So I think they did a good job with that. So overall, I thought it was pretty good in episode 1 or part 1 for their appearance.
Yeah, I think it was a very fun and very effective episode. If we're staying specifically just to Hawkgirl and Hawkman, I think it was a solid introduction for them, because you're taking a concept that's not really easy for casual viewers to swallow. It's like, yeah, we have a telepathic gorilla, and yeah, we have time travel, and yeah, we have a magical pool that rejuvenates people. But these two have been lovers for thousands of years, and they die every time, and they're reincarnated every time, and they find one another. For some reason, even though you have magic and everything, that concept may be a little still out there. The CW universe keeps expanding, and that's a good thing, I think. It started off as very grounded, attempting to be realistic, and now we have so much. It's really cool how much they're doing to really add to the mythos of the CW universe. But yeah, I think they handled it very well, because it wasn't overly dramatic and super serious. I was kind of afraid that Hawkman, who was played by is it Falk Henschel, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of afraid that he would be this very serious character with no real sense of humor, very literal, and very dramatic with revealing their story. Like 4,000 years ago, we were in love, but then tragedy struck. And instead, he kind of has this, he's a really likable guy who, he's kind of, you can tell he's been through all this before, and he doesn't really have time for some of this, fully explaining it to some people. Like, he's just kind of grown bored of that. He's obviously very patient and nothing but loving to Hawk. Well, I guess you could argue about that point. I was going to say the Hawkgirl, but there's that one hysterical scene with how he's like, yeah, you'll do fine.
Oh, man, that was so funny.
Yeah.
But honestly, I like their chemistry a lot, and I like that Hawkman was a bit of a jerk, like, because that is kind of his character, and I think you'll grow to like him being that jerk, but you're gonna see those softer sides of him, and I thought that was really well done of how they introduced him.
Yeah, I think he's a great character so far. I think he's a really good addition to the cast, because he's a good mix of everyone. He's the tough guy who could be very serious and knowledgeable about the crazy things that are going on, but he also has this sense of humor there. It's not quite the same as Cisco, or lighthearted like Barry. It's almost insulting in some points and very direct, but it's it's very entertaining, and I really like the potential there he has with all the other characters when it comes to interactions and banter. Very funny. As for Hawkgirl, like you said, it's a lot of build up for her. She's going through a more emotional arc than Hawkman is, so she doesn't really have the chance to be as like cheer-worthy and hilarious. She's going through the motions of something really, really crazy and emotional to her. I mean, she has this huge epiphany that, you know, she's not who she thinks she is, and she has to absorb all that, and it's obviously tough. And I think is her first name pronounced Ciara or Kiara?
I never know. I
I've
think
never
it's
had to
Kiara.
pronounce it.
I think I don't want to say it's. I just like call it Kendra now. Although I do want to mention that I think they adapted like the Kendra Saunders comic to really well in this story, because you know the whole. I mean, obviously the Kendra comic is a lot darker, and I won't go into that story. But they did it pretty well. It's like, oh well, actually you're reincarnated. So I thought they adapted that pretty well. So if you guys never read it, I'm pretty sure it span out of the Hawkman comics and it got renumbered into Hawkgirl. I recommend it. It's like 20 issues or so.
Yeah, Jeff Johns wrote it, right?
I'm not sure who wrote it. I think maybe it was Jeff Johns. Pretty sure it was. But yeah.
But yeah, if she is listening, I'm terribly sorry for not knowing how to pronounce your name. So I'll just say Renee, her last name, the actress. I think she's doing a good job so far with, you know, the tough situation her character is in. It's believable the way she's going through the motions of everything. And I do like that she has all these different personalities to kind of talk with, excuse me. You know, Cisco, who's more lighthearted, but also cares about her deeply. So this gives him the chance to be more, you know, compelling as well as her. And Hawkman, who's kind of just being, you know, blunt, and he's like, yeah, let's come on. We've been through this thousands of times before. I'm here to teach you. Come on. So yeah, I think it was a really good start for both of them. It definitely got a lot of exposition out of the way, I think.
Yeah, which is good for, you know, once we get into Legends. So let's actually move on to Vandal Savage, who's another character from Legends of Tomorrow that was introduced in this episode. And I really liked Vandal. I really liked how Crump portrayed him. He looks a lot like him. And I think they really showed the idea of like how bored he is with life, and that he obviously wants to get this thing done with Hawkgirl and Hawkman. So I like that. Even the way he attacks, he's like, oh, I don't really care if it's slow anymore. I just want you guys to die and get out of my way. You know, he's not really that patient anymore. So I like that. So yeah, I thought they introduced him really well. He had some really good action stuff in this episode. And of course, again, all that story continues in part 2 to see if he's defeated or not, which we'll talk about. But yeah, I thought his portrayal was great. And I'm really curious of how they're going to expand his story into 16 episodes in Legends.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Casper Crump did a great job with the role, and of course the writers, obviously, they play a big part in this, creating the character. I think he came off as unique. We've seen a lot of different, you know, big bad personalities, and it runs the risk of, you know, characters having similar objectives or personalities being a little too similar, and I think they've done a really good job differentiating each of them, and that holds true again with Vandal Savage. And the most interesting thing with him is obviously his centuries of experience, and they find entertaining ways to bring that into the picture, like the Houdini remark, like, no, I taught him this. But yeah, like you said, he's just kind of a badass. Not kind of, he is. I mean,
Total badass.
That was so cool, the way he threw the multiple blades at all the characters.
That was a great scene.
And then he was smart enough to then tag a speedster in the back as Barry caught all them. And part of me felt like that was a nod to the first crossover, because Barry, it seems like every crossover now, he's going to get stabbed in the back like once. Because, yeah, it seems like it. That may be a reoccurring thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I really like that scene. That was probably one of my favorite scenes out of both episodes, was that just them in Oliver's apartment, because you get to see them all as friends, and it just felt like a comic scene in a lot of ways. And then you get to see that Sippies moment where you see Oliver put on his quiver, and then you also see Thea put on her quiver, and it's them out of costume. And I'm like, whoa, that's really cool, honestly. I love those type of moments where you could mix in Civvy type costume and then have the actual costume, and then be their heroes without without their costumes. So I like that moment a lot. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a scene before the big fight where it was just characters being human, just people interacting, and
We're
that.
talking about not being human.
Yeah, okay, maybe a poor choice of word for some cases, like metahumans and. Anyway, but actually, there's only two metahumans there: Cisco and Flash. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. To see a count.
Hawkgirl was in this. Hawkgirl wasn't even in the scene, so it was Cisco and Flash.
Does Thea still count as human after the Lazarus pit, or does that make her something else?
That's a good question. So we have two metahumans, and one half we have no idea who you are. Magical
zombie.
Lazarus pit.
She's part angry zombie. Mostly human though. But yeah, no, that was a great scene. There was just a lot of really strong character interactions there. Really good dialogue. It was entertaining and also gave us a little more insight into everyone at some point. I really like. Before we started recording, I mentioned I'm a little disappointed that Casper Crump was cast as Vandal Savage, because right when he made his debut in the show, his first line was about like he's waited so long for this hunt, and I was looking at him and I was like, oh my god, that's Kraven the Hunter. Like, he totally has the look down, like a little bit of a haircut, a little shorter, and the dialogue. I was like, that's Kraven. This needs to happen. That's my favorite Marvel villain. Sorry for going on that slight tangent, but I think if Casper Crump does ever hear about a Kraven the Hunter casting call, please go for it, man.
Yes, please. First of all, you have the look, and I'm sure you have the acting chops to do it. So yes. Let's see that happen.
He's
As
totally
an Ultra
pulling
Spider-Man
off.
fan too, I want to see that happen.
Yeah, he's totally pulling off a confident, knowledgeable, intimidating villain. Yeah. So that's what it takes to be Kraven, and he has everything else. But yeah, great as Vandal so far.
Definitely. So let's move on to the next thing, which is actually kind of a negative for me with this episode, which was the Speed Force serum. As much as obviously this is an awesome thing happening in the Flash universe, I don't think this was the right episode to have any of that plot. Like, I understand you wanted Caitlin, you wanted Wells in the episode, but it felt so separated. It did not fit the episode for me. And then having Patty in it, but Patty had more lines than Iris. I'm like, at least Iris is part of Team Flash. I was so confused by that. So I thought this was in the wrong episode, that whole story, because that story is going to become very important too, I'm sure, as for the mid-season finale. But maybe they should have done it last episode. I don't know, but it felt so out of place for me in this episode.
Yeah, I think that was the weak point of the episode as well. It's nothing against any of the writing that went on in those scenes or any of the performances. It's just, it was not interesting compared to what was going on with the team up. And it was pretty obvious that was just purely plot driven. Like, you're doing all this other stuff to set up Legends of Tomorrow and Hawkgirl and Hawkman. Obviously, everything there is plot driven. But for there, it was just like, we need to advance the plot in The Flash as well. So let's just get that out of the way here. And it wasn't, those scenes weren't as engaging to me. I mean, it was cool seeing Tia Garrick use the Speed Force again. But overall, when those scenes occurred, I was like, I know it's just so they can develop the serum, which will come into play after the crossover is over, of course. Crossover is over, what? After the crossover has concluded.
The crossover was until the rest of the season.
Yes, it's until the end of time. Barry keeps just going back in time and restarting it. It's very weird.
He loves it so much.
But, yeah. No, but yeah, you could definitely tell that was just planning for the future of Flash.
Yeah, but it was so like forced, and it was just like, it was so obvious that it was there for that. I was like, I would have enjoyed this more somewhere else. But I actually thought the Arrow storylines, they intertwined a bit better in this episode, which is weird because it's not an Arrow episode. Like, the opening scene with Damien Dark was hilarious, and I hope we get to see more of those type of scenes.
That was so good. What was that? Neil McDonough? Is that his full name? I'm such a terrible... Yes, Neil McDonough. Neil McDonough. Wow, how many more times can I say it before I'm convinced that's actually his name?
I think every episode we talk about it too.
Yeah, every time I'm like, Neil McDonough. He's such a good actor too. I feel like such a jerk messing that up. But yeah, he is so good. I love him as a villain. He's just so charismatic and intimidating. You can't help but like love the guy, but also hate him at the same time, which is kind of similar to Jessica Jones in a way, where you have a character who says these lines that are entertaining, but in a very messed up. That's a totally different subject. He's a
But
very
it's
twisted
definitely
villain.
worth mentioning. But I agree. I think
Yes.
it is like Purple Man. Honestly, it's a lot like Malcolm, and I
Yes.
think we're seeing that now with Damien Dark. That was just such a great opening scene, though.
For
So yeah, I
sure.
thought that was really well to drive the Arrow plotline, even though it didn't really
Yeah.
progress anything. It just showed, yeah, this is what's happening in Arrow. The ending part of that scene where we get to see Diggle totally react to it, and Thea's like, "When did Flash? What? When did this happen?"
Yeah, we know the Flash, right? Okay, we know the. That was really. It's nice to see her have something that's more lighthearted.
Yeah, she had a
Especially since,
lot of lighthearted lines
yeah.
this episode, which made me so happy. I was so happy with Thea in this
Mhm.
episode. And again, it's great to see characters that don't really, and we'll talk about this in character interactions, but don't really get to interact that often. And especially Thea and Diggle. Well, Diggle
Mhm.
interacted with them a little bit last season, but still hilarious that he can't wrap his mind around the Flash Speed Force. Diggle just can never do it. He never convinced. So I like that. And also even with the Thea bloodlust, I thought they intertwined well in this episode.
Yes.
Malcolm, they could have done a little bit better, but then you understood in the second episode why he was there. At first, I'm like, why is Malcolm here?
Yeah. He's there. It's like, you guys need some information. Malcolm's here.
I thought Vandal would have been better. He could have just said that in the beginning. He was like, I am Vandal Savage, blah, blah, blah. This is me. You know, I
Would
thought
be
it
in
was like,
character.
you
He's
really need
certainly
Malcolm?
arrogant. Yeah, he's very arrogant. I could see him wanting to do that. But I do like how, we'll talk about it later in the second episode, Barry's like, did you rehearse that? That was really good. But on the scenes that we weren't that fond of with back at the lab, excuse me. It's really frustrating to me how no one keeps Patty in the loop.
Yeah.
She is like, there's no reason not to trust her. They're telling so many people, they're keeping so many people in the loop now. And it's just infuriating that they're kind of dragging it out with her, because she's so trustworthy and helpful and reliable. I don't see a good reason not to include her in this.
It's
I think
drama. That's why. It's drama, and that's
yeah,
why.
and that feels really forced to me.
Yeah.
It's building up to like either Barry finally telling her and them being cool with it together and moving forward, or her finding out and being mad at them for not including her. You know, like, why couldn't you tell me sooner? And it ends their
Why couldn't
relationship.
you though? Like she has a good reason to act. Like Linda knows, Hawk Girl knows. I mean, all these people that
Hawkman
know,
knows when you tied him up.
everyone knows. Yeah. So I think I agree. That's just
Yeah.
getting kind of annoying now that they're keeping it from her, and it just seems like they're keeping it forever. Come on, just tell her already. Everyone else
Yeah,
knows.
we've got. I feel like that's a storyline that they shouldn't repeat. We've seen that with Iris, where you're
Yeah.
not telling someone to protect them. It would be nice if they didn't repeat that, because right now it's feeling like it'll have a predictable outcome, and hopefully they'll prove us wrong. I would love that.
Yeah,
'Cause
hopefully they're doing it for a reason and it's not just drama. We'll have to find out, I'm sure,
yeah,
either in the mid-season finale or after that.
yeah.
Uh,
One complaint though
mhm.
about Damien Dark's scene, I loved it, but then when Dark gets Green Arrow at a disadvantage, he touches him and he starts doing the life drain or whatever it's technically called. Um, all of Team Arrow just vanished. I
Oh, I
had
think
to.
that's because of the Flash, though. I think maybe he took him away. No, they probably did take him one by one. That makes sense because he can't carry all of them.
Kind of weird though, because they were holding their own, and Oliver's like in a lethal situation where he's like on the brink of
Yeah.
death, and then he saves him for last. I get it's there for drama, but when that was playing out, and you're right, I totally forgot that when Flash pulls him away, everyone else is there. But it just just disregard me. It's a minor criticism at best, so it's silly for me to go on about it.
Yeah, but it's still something to mention. Yeah, it's definitely there. So let's actually talk about the character interaction, which we were, talking about before. This episode I thought was on point with character interaction because, like I said earlier, I liked it was characters we really don't usually get to see interact, or characters we usually do and just see it more. Like Oliver and Barry's bromance is amazing, and we see more of that here. But then you get to see characters that have never interacted with them at all, like Thea, interacting with Cisco and Barry, and I thought that was really well done.
Mhm.
I kind of wish there was like Laurel or something. I know they saved her for the next episode, which we'll get into with part 2. Honestly, they had their hands filled with all the characters, and that was actually kind of a minor complaint I had, is that as much as I loved all the character interactions, I can't emphasize that enough, because that is the most amazing part about these crossovers, is to see them in their, like, out of their element, and seeing them in the other shows, and seeing them interact. But I thought there were sometimes too many people in a scene, and it felt crowded this episode sometimes. And that was my worry, and it kind of happened, I felt.
It did. You could tell they were definitely trying to accomplish a lot in the episode. They were juggling a lot, and I guess we could like nitpick about pacing and everything, but in the end, definitely seems like we both really, really, really enjoyed the episode. Thankfully.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So yeah. I do like. The whole time I was wondering, like, where's Laurel? Why isn't she here? And then they did justify it, thankfully, like 3/4.
But then they didn't justify it in part 2, which we'll get into. But it was just like, yeah, she was with her mom. Which probably also means she's with her sister. And this is the Legends of Tomorrow crossover episode, kind of. So why is Sarah not here?
Yeah, that was a little surprising, but at the same rate, I'm kind of glad. Because like you said, there were already so many people being juggled. I think to then throw Sarah in, I would rather have them save for another episode where they can get a proper amount of the spotlight instead of just like not getting enough attention. Because I feel like if Sarah and Laurel did appear and they did have their own little arc, we'd be like, it got glossed over, you know? It did get
once again.
yeah. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. But yeah. So
maybe better excuse for Laurel. I don't know, or just they could have. That kind of bugged me. I felt because she's also a character we haven't seen interact with as much with the Flash cast, because she wasn't in the last crossover episode really. So. It would have been kind of nice to see her a bit more. I think she had maybe 1 or 2 lines in part 2.
Yeah, very limited role. But we'll always have the memory of her and Cisco interacting.
That is the best. And we need more of that, hopefully in the future. I'm sure she'll be making more Central City vacations there. It seems like she's already starting. So that is character interaction. Now the last topic we're going to talk about with part 1 is the Oliver Kid cliffhanger, which me and Greg were talking about a little bit pre-show, and honestly, since this story has started like 2 years ago, I've not been looking forward to this, because I really like Connor Hawke in the comics, but this is not Connor Hawke. This is a younger kid who's not named Connor Hawke, who is just not that character. And I think it's gonna be more of a hassle to bring an 8-year-old kid into a show that has to do with action. Or just add drama. Like, I just feel like this is more of like, we need more drama and novelty factor, so let's put in more drama. I think Oliver and Felicity's, and we've talked about this in the past, I think they're always the best when they are there and they're the anchors for each other. When they have this positivity towards each other's relationship, which we saw a lot in this episode, but we'll get into in part 2. So I am not a huge fan of this storyline.
Yeah, it was kind of... again, with the promo department, I really wish that they would like keep some of the writers or producers in the loop. The producers from the show, obviously, the promo department more than likely has its own producers and writers and yada yada yada. But I wish people who are more connected to the story of Flash and Arrow would be looped in on the promo process, because I feel like it gives too much away. And in this case, on the previously on Arrow, that was my best impression I could do of previously on X-Men from the animated show way back when. Anyway, it showed in that previously on that Oliver has a kid. So the whole time I'm waiting throughout the episode, wondering when is this going to come into play. And then at the end, a kid bumps into Oliver. I'm like, there he is.
And then Oliver sure enough, he's like, wait.
Yeah, that's why when I was live tweeting under the Legends of Tomorrow podcast account, I just quickly typed it out. I'm like, I wonder if that's his kid. And then right afterwards, I'm like, LOL, yep.
It's like, yeah, and he likes Flash more than Green Arrow.
Yeah, I tried to, I did my best to remain spoiler free during all the live tweeting, but at that part, I was like, I bet that's his kid. Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely was. And it was spoiler-free, because technically they didn't spell it out, but they kind of did, that it was his kid. Because of Sandra Hawk. But yeah, I don't know. I'm unsettled with this storyline because
Well,
I mean we also know that Connor is going to be in Legends of Tomorrow, so this is not Connor, and like who is Connor then? And his last name's Hawk. So, but also it might maybe the story will bring someone into the grave. I don't think it's going to be the kid.
you sure
I
about
hope it
that?
wouldn't be, but it could be Sandra. It could be Sandra Hawk that dies, and then Oliver has to take care of his son.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't even remember what I was going to say. Carry on. Zoning out. End of a long day.
All right, so that is pretty much part one, and we'll give our ultra feedback in the end about that. But let's go into part two and some of the storylines there. So we are continuing Oliver kid story because we were talking about that. So we see Oliver finally interact with Sandra or Sandra, I guess Sandra, in this episode, and we see that she's kind of open with Oliver interacting with him without saying that you're the father and you can't tell anybody for some reason. I don't know why what that has to do with anything, but just create drama. And that brings me into why I like Oliver and Felicity more when they are not having drama. And this kind of reminded me of season 3, Oliver and Felicity, where it's like, we need more drama. Let's put in the drama here. Let Oliver not tell Felicity for no reason. I understand of him saying, I have to process this. Cool, but you had time to process it. Now just tell her now. Or tell some, if Barry knows, why can't Felicity know? So I was really confused by that. But I do think I really did like the scene where he's playing with the action figures with his son. I thought that was a really touching moment, and hopefully we'll get more of those in the future. But hopefully they can balance the story better.
It was a 1-2 punch of pulling at our, tugging at our heartstrings when it had the scene of Barry and I almost said Steven, Oliver with the hug scene. I love that. That was such a touching moment, and it made me smile.
Like Oliver too. It's like, I don't hug. It's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, but he was like smiling and having fun with it. You could tell it made him uncomfortable, but he was happy. And the way Grant Gustin character, he's just so charming. It was a really good scene, and then it cuts to Oliver. The character's undergone a lot of positive development. He's really matured. He started as someone who was really angry and not trustworthy, and now he keeps people in the loop for the most part, and yeah, he's more composed, more thoughtful, and really makes the show a lot better because it produces less frustrating developments with the character. But to then see him revert to his old ways with this development, it was very disappointing because I get it's a big secret and he thinks it can affect his relationship perhaps with Felicity, but they're at the point where they love each other. They've risked their lives multiple times. They know almost everything about one another, and it's just kind of silly to me for him to keep this secret from her because they're at a point where I don't know why he can't overcome this trust issue because he loves her so much and he confides in her. I mean, I can't imagine hiding something like that from my fiance. Like, she would be nothing but supportive, and we would talk about it, and I know I could trust her with it.
It's not like he knew previously. Like, it was something he was hiding for years, or like, all right, but which he shouldn't have anyways. But it's like he just found out, and this is literally the time to tell Felicity. Just say, hey, this is going on. I didn't know about it, and this is what my mom did, and hide the fact. And
if anything, the situation with his mother, I can't imagine him just keeping that on the inside. How can he not want to talk about that with the woman he loves? It's just, it's a little frustrating, and I hope that doesn't play out for too much longer. Especially because
not, but knowing this show, it just
we'll see. We'll see. I'm trying to stay optimistic because at the end there, when they were hugging and supporting each other, you could tell Felicity had that look where she's like, "I'm with you, but I'm not buying this. I could tell there's something you're not telling me." And I do hope he eventually comes clean and it turns into a better situation as opposed to a downward spiral. So we'll see. And like you said, now that the kid has been introduced and Damien Dark is all about killing people that you love, killing the kid or killing the mom, that would definitely cause a reaction from Oliver that would make him want to kill Damien Dark.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I could see it happening, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next thing, which is the flashbacks between Vandal, Hawkman, and Hawkgirl. So it's keeping to the formula of Arrow, where we do have flashbacks. We technically have multiple flashbacks with something that happens in this episode. But yeah, I like the flashbacks a lot. I'm not a fan of the Arrow flashbacks, as you guys know, but I really like the costuming here. I think it did a good job at, instead of people explaining, this is what happened in our lives, it showed us what happened and really showed history well, and, like, you understand the relationship more. So I liked it. I thought it was good flashbacks.
Yeah, when you can show something instead of telling something, definitely go for that.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a better way to give us information and make it more emotional. Instead of a story literally being told, we're watching it unfold. And yeah, it was an enjoyable flashback. It was good stuff. I mean, we obviously knew where it was going the whole time, but it was still entertaining.
Mm-hmm. And you had a kind of a twist in the second flashback and or third flashback, the last flashback. You had a little twist of helping out the storyline and figuring out actually how to destroy Vandal. All right, so let's move on to the next thing, which is the time travel twist, which I was just talking about. So half of this episode actually is something that doesn't happen. So we've seen this a couple of times on The Flash. One of my favorite episodes is that, Cisco death, and I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? Oh my God, time travel. And we knew that was going to happen.
It did happen, it just doesn't count.
What?
It did happen, it just doesn't count.
Yes, exactly.
Take backsies.
But with this one, we see that obviously Oliver's upset with what happened with Felicity, so his head's not in the game, and he also makes his team not join the fight, which I guess makes sense with why his mind was a little clouded there. And then in the second part, we see the team actually helps him. We find the extra piece, and that's because of teamwork, which I really loved. And that's the point of this crossover. It's like, well, we can't do it alone on our show. We have to do it together, and we really see some really good teamwork in that final battle, and I liked it personally.
Yeah, when Hawkgirl and Hawkman died, I believed that was legit because I was like, they can just come back to life. Yeah. But then I was like, wait a second, do they have to look different? But then I realized they look basically the same as they did in their first life, so I guess not. So I was like, yeah, this is legit. But then, other stuff started to happen. I was like, wait a second, what?
Those effects when they were like burning up, I was like, wow.
And then, it was a really powerful scene, and you can't like look away. It's just so attention grabbing. And the funny thing was, right as that happened, as everyone gets burned away, as you see Oliver just turn to a skeleton, and I was like, wow, I got the chills. And then it cuts to seeing that happen to everyone in the home. And you see everyone die that way. And I saw Felicity die that way. And I looked at my fiance, and I was like, some people watching this are probably like really happy to see that right
They probably have that GIF happen, or they're really upset. So it's definitely polar opposites.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone's either really happy or someone's extremely upset this just happened.
Yeah, that's what I was explaining to my fiance. I was like, people love or hate her. There's very few people, at least, who are talking about it online, who are in the middle. It's a love-hate situation. So we'll definitely, I refuse to call it a GIF is what you said. I think it's supposed to be GIF, but I call it a GIF. Wait, what? GIF? GIF is what you said, right?
Yeah,
I think that's how it's supposed to be pronounced, but I refuse. I call it a GIF. I'm stubborn.
I remember someone corrected me a very long time ago, so that's why it's just like now in my vocabulary call it GIF.
And so it's just
stubborn. Like, so whatever you guys want to call it, it's probably on Tumblr somewhere.
I'm sure, yeah. Yeah, we'll see people celebrating Felicity dying, and we'll see people who are like, that is the worst moment ever. I don't want to see it again. Either way, it was a very powerful scene.
It was a very powerful scene. It was really cool kind of seeing the whole team together, and not cool, but it was just a very powerful scene to see them all die together. I wouldn't say cool because I don't want to see them die, but we knew it was all going to be erased anyways.
Great special effects, very, very emotional.
Yes, very good scene. So let's actually move on to the Vandal Savage battle, which, like I said, I thought it was a well-done battle the second time around. The first time around, like, oh my God, this is happening. But each time it was that moment where both Barry and Oliver was holding that staff together and just being bros and fighting together. We see one in part 1 when they're in the church and they do that, and then in part 2 they completely are together, working together, and it shows like these two really different heroes just like being best buds, and I love it. So I thought the fight was good, and I liked how they utilized the other heroes too, like Laurel Scream or Diggle and Thea fighting, and then the Hawks bringing them off stage, or the area, and then you get to see Oliver and Flash do the finish move, and they're like, he's dead, which we'll talk about. Is he really dead or not?
I wonder.
I wonder. He was in that trailer we saw.
I do like, though, that there's a twist with him at the very end.
Which we were gonna talk about.
I do like that, because the whole time you're like, obviously he's not dead. I mean, like, during the show, there are promos about Legends of Tomorrow in which he is the bad guy. So we all know he's not dead. Or technically he is dead. Excuse me. We know he's dead, but he's going to come back. So I do like that the surprise is in how he comes back.
Yeah, well, I guess
that's very
we can talk about it now. So if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, sure. But I also really like seeing them use teamwork. So, I mean, they are a team. It's nice to see them act like one and coordinate. So that was really fun. One thing that I'm kind of wondering, though, is we keep talking about Vandal Savage like he's unstoppable. Like, no matter what you do, he cannot be stopped. You cannot do anything. They will not be safe. But I get it. He has a healing factor. He can come back from everything. Why do you have to put him down permanently? I mean, they have a high-tech prison facility. He's the perfect candidate for that. Can't they just, like, I don't know.
I think they were just too scared of him. They're like, I don't know why they were too scared of him either. Like, I know he's a threat, but if you really look at it and you didn't know his history, you probably think he's just as much of a threat as, like, any normal kind of villain. But he is immortal, so...
Well, that's the thing, though. He's immortal, but he requires the life force of Kendra and Hawk. So I wonder how long he would live without that. But, yeah, I mean, they have this high-tech facility. If anything, that place is perfect for him. Like, I get they can't keep him down, but in their first encounter with him, they were able to, quote-unquote, defeat him by using teamwork.
That was an awesome scene. We keep mentioning that scene, but it's so cool.
Yeah, they can still incapacitate him or try to.
And they could building like they did.
Use some trick arrows to tie him up. I know he taught Houdini tricks, but several ropes around him or something, or a trick arrow with knockout gas or something, and then have it set up so Barry can use super speed to drop him off in a cell and then race out and lock him in there. I'm just saying.
Legends of Tomorrow.
That's true. That's unfortunate. I'm just saying that it would be cool if someone at least proposed the idea and they justified why that wouldn't work.
Or they could just look at them and say no. Go on with their plan.
Yeah, do they even still have that prison facility?
I think Flash does.
They still have it in Star Labs? Okay, because I was going to say, like, if they could write out that possibility, because they have been killing their villains. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think they could have explained that a little bit more, why they went to the total extent of killing him, because usually they're totally against it. And I mean, going back to even the part 1, like when Oliver thought that Thea killed Vandal, it's like, no, what did you just do? So obviously, like, you're a little upset that he died and Thea did that. So, but it's okay for you guys to kill him. And in part 2, I don't know.
I guess once the stakes have changed, like it's no longer just about saving these two people. So, yeah, I guess they now like understand what they're up against. But I mean, like, I when it comes to intelligence, those characters are. To say they're miles and miles above me, that would be a big understatement. So it's just kind of weird that they haven't at least proposed the idea. They're like, well, I know we can't, like, kill him, but we do have this awesome facility. Can we keep him in there? Yeah. Maybe they're afraid that he'll outlive it and then break out or something. But, I mean, if he requires their life force, then that means he could die of old age technically in there. I'm not sure how long it would take, but we'll see.
We will. And so something that happened in the end of this episode is that Malcolm, I mean, he's the true villain of this story, because he's the one who brings back Vandal for some reason. And we're like, Malcolm, you're doing this for a reason. Like, what's going on here? And I love that moment, because I love Malcolm as a villain, because he has such an obviously connection to the Arrow family. And you see you've seen him grown since season 1, and he's a trickster. He is.
Mhm.
He's like,
The
oh yeah,
magician.
I like you guys for a second. I'll help you now, but it's like, no, I got my own motives going on, and that's the fun thing about Malcolm.
Yeah, I think Malcolm is he's a very dangerous guy, but he's also very wise. He knows when he's outclassed, and
Yeah.
he knows that Vandal Savage could be an incredibly powerful ally. So I think he'll try to strike a deal with Vandal Savage. I think he even said like, you owe me one or something.
Yeah.
I think he knows that Vandal coming back is probably inevitable. Probably question mark, but because I mean he was saying he's the one who saved Vandal Savage, but it definitely seemed to imply that. So I think he's absolutely trying to get in Vandal's good graces and hope that he can use that to his advantage and maybe say like, no matter what your plans are, hands off Thea.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's ultimately what he cares about. It seems he just wants to protect her.
Definitely.
Well, and power, but yeah. And
He
power.
wants to protect Thea. That's his ultimate. But he's like, actually, I think his ultimate is power, and then he's like, protect Thea.
He wants both. He's twisted about it. You know, I don't think anyone who truly cared about someone would brainwash them and then make them take, someone's life. But he's not Father of the Year, but he does care in his own messed up way.
Yeah, he's so much fun to watch. I mean, he's such a great character. So moving on to our last topic for this part is that character interaction. How was it for this episode? I feel like this episode had less to do with the characters, and last episode had more of that fun dynamic. And I think that was more of a negative for part 2 because I love the character interaction so much in part 1. And then part 2, like, it was good, but I think they could have utilized the characters a little bit more. Again, going back to Laurel, we already talked about her. So yeah, I thought it was more of a plot-driven thing. It's like, hey, we kind of have to finish this now. But still, obviously, there, like when they're in the farmhouse and the Avengers moment they had, that was a lot of fun.
I never thought I'd see that coming. That was great. Yeah, no, who would have thought we would get an Age of Ultron joke thrown in there?
I
was great.
did not expect it.
Yeah, some cross company love, always nice to see. But yeah, I agree with you in that this episode wasn't really that funny. It was more emotional, more dramatic. And I'm cool with that. I think, I loved the Flash episode because it was really entertaining. It was fun, constantly made me smile. Something I didn't rant about before, though, speaking of that episode. Did you also find it a little weird when Hawkman flies upwards with Barry? Barry seems like knocked out. And then when he drops him, Barry, like, he seems really limp and like he's still knocked out. And then he catches on the wire. It was kind of weird to me.
That whole scene, honestly, was really weird for me. Like, even just them, his motive to go out, I was like, hold on, Hawk Girl, gotta go. And then there's random fight, and then it's kind of a weird scene in general.
I won't complain about random fight because I thought it was so fun. But yeah, just that one. Also, Barry did the throwing the lightning trick, which there was a lot of build-up. And then when he hit Hawkman with it, I feel like the payoff wasn't really there. You just saw Hawkman go like, bleh! He kind of like quickly rolled away. But it was still really cool overall. I'm being so negative, but I loved it overall.
Hey, we gotta nitpick sometimes because like we love the episode that much that you gotta nitpick at some stuff and love and geek out on the others, like we have.
But yeah, like you said, first episode was hilarious and very entertaining, a lot of fun, a lot of build up as well. Second episode was more about fleshing out the Hawk dynamic and making things a little more dramatic, more compelling. Not as many laughs, but it was definitely a more powerful episode, I think.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So as we get into the verdict, so was this a good crossover for Legends? And I thought it was. Something I liked about this was it wasn't totally a backdoor pilot for Legends Tomorrow. Like, I think it did stand on its own. But obviously it was a great way to explain this whole Hawk Girl, Hawkman mythology without, like, over-explaining it in Legends when you have so many characters you have to explore. So I thought it was a pretty good episode to kind of introduce all this.
Yes, I mean, like we've been saying the whole time, there's obviously some elements that we weren't biggest fans around of. But overall, yeah, it was a really, really good crossover where I think it brought the comedy, it brought the drama, definitely brought the entertainment, great performances all around. And like you said, it it gave us mandatory information without Legends of Tomorrow, without feeling like it was blatantly a prequel, I guess. It wasn't forming the Legends of Tomorrow team or, trying to get every single one of them into the screen for, a little bit of time. It addressed the new characters, which is needed because everyone who's following the universe, they know a decent amount about Captain Cold. They know what has been presented about Heatwave, which is very little. Right now, he's just, this this bad guy who loves heat puns, fire puns. But but yeah, Vandal Savage, Hawkgirl, and Hawkman. Those are like the big new characters for that show. And they're obviously going to be fleshed out a lot in Legends of Tomorrow, or at least I assume so. Seems like a fair assumption. But yeah, this was a great way to make sure CW fans get an emotional connection to these new characters right away, have a proper understanding about them. And then that way, when we get into Legends of Tomorrow, it can kind of bypass some of that exposition because it assumes that people already know the basics. It'll probably say a little bit. They'll work in, some of the dialogue, like obviously pointing out Vandal Savage is immortal, and Hawkgirl and Hawkman are resurrected over the past 4,000 years. Blah 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 blah. I'm sure Rip Hunter will go over all that, and as they talk to one another and learn about each other. But this was a really good way to shine the spotlight on those three characters while also giving us a lot of fan service with the characters we already know very well. Or at least most of them.
Yeah, so that was my next question. Do you think it was a good crossover for Flash and Arrow? Yeah, I thought this was a great crossover. I thought this was actually better than the first one because the first one is a lot of fun because we're seeing all these characters interact for really, not the first time, but at least a group of characters for the first time do so. But it was very much a villain of the week. Both episodes were like, here's our villain, here's ours, let's fight. Here is very much connected, which I liked, and we got to see more characters interact that we didn't get to see in the past season. Yes, there could have been even more character interaction, like I said, but I loved it. It was so much fun. It was a really fun two-part episode or episodes.
Yeah, very, very fun with using the primary cast of both shows. Well, some exceptions, obviously, like Iris, Detective Joe West. There were several characters.
Quentin wasn't in it either.
Yeah, he wasn't in it at all, actually. Huh? There were several characters who were left out or didn't get enough attention, but at the same rate, the crossover already had so many characters incorporated that trying to include everyone and give everyone some attention would have taken away from the important stuff. Right. So, I'm glad it didn't incorporate everyone possible. Sorry, zoned out for a moment. Like I said, end of a late day. Super tired. Totally lost my train of thought. Derailed. Wow, what was I going to say? Can you read my mind from there? What was I going to say?
Nothing.
Yeah, I guess not. It'll probably occur to me and it'll pop up 5 minutes later when we're not recording.
But wait, this really important thing I had to say.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it a lot overall. So there's that.
Yeah, so that's our last thing. What did we think about part 1 and part 2? Again, I liked it. Huh?
It's not 5 minutes later. I already remember.
There.
It was because you were asking about was it a good crossover for Flash and Arrow.
Yes.
As we've said multiple times, so we really, really liked it. But for the bigger picture in both those stories, I feel like it wasn't really that pivotal. It felt more like establishing plot points they'll be taken advantage of later. Like in Arrow, the kid is definitely going to come into play later, as well as the mother, and as well as the drama that lying to Felicity yet again will generate. And with Flash, it was just for that serum, however it'll be used. Maybe they'll use it to overload Zoom, or maybe Barry will use it for a boost. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe Jay will use it, and then together they'll take down Zoom. I don't know. But yeah, it just felt like for both of them, they introduced one plot point, which they'll get to later.
Yeah, I think, was it, again, a necessary episode? For Legends, it was, obviously. For Arrow and Flash, probably not, but it was so much fun, and that's what really these crossovers need, and that's what we got. So going into that, the last thing we're going to talk about is, did we like part 1 and part 2? Again, I personally like part 1 more. I just thought I like the character interactions a bit more there. And part 2 again was more dramatic, and there were some good scenes there. But I think the Oliver Kid thing kind of took me out of it. But also in part 1, the serum took me out of it. But the Oliver Kid thing, I'm still not totally sold on. So yeah, I had a fun time with it, and I hope that we could get to see these characters interact like we did last year, where we got some episodes where Laurel went into Flash. I hope we could maybe get to see more of that, like random guest appearance from like Cisco goes to Star Labs, not Star Labs, Star City, Star City for a random reason. So yeah, I thought it was a very solid event, and it was better than last year's.
Yeah, for sure. I can't really pick a favorite between the two because they're very different. They both, did what they needed to excuse me, make us better understand Vandal Savage, Hawkman, and Hawkgirl. But the way they went about those objectives were very different. Like we were saying, a gazillion times. First part's a lot of comedy, a lot of action. Second part, a little more serious, a little more dramatic. And I think they both accomplished those things very well, and I like them equally.
Awesome. So that is the end of our show. Hopefully you guys can let us know what you thought about both these episodes. And yeah, so as we close up, Greg, is there anything coming up for you would like to talk about?
No, not really. You can follow me on Twitter at Gregg Katzman. That's GreggKatzman. I also write for ScreenRant.com. I occasionally write for IGN.com. I'm starting to write for another website, but I can't really say anything publicly about that yet. Dun, dun, dun. And I also work part-time over at Midtown Comics. So if you're ever in the city, stop by, check it out. Not being shameless and asking you to buy something, but it's always fun to go there and just browse. And if you do buy something, terrific.
Go buy some stuff. So yeah, for me, go check out my Twitter at Comic Uno. Check out my YouTube channel, Hayden Claire Heroes, or just type in Comic Uno, you'll find me. You go check out my comic book, like Father Like Daughter. There'll be links somewhere, I'm sure. Yeah, so Greg, you want to tell us the links for Legends tomorrow?
Sure. I did forget one shameless plug though. I'm also the co-host of another DC TV podcast show. It's the DC Movies Podcast, and the Twitter handle for that is very literal. It's at DC Movies Podcast. So if you're also interested in the cinematic side of the DC world, in this case the DC Extended Universe, please check that out. As for other plugs, I just load it up, and there we are. You can obviously like us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Legends of Tomorrow Podcast. Please feel free to follow us on Twitter. That's at Legends_podcast. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and YouTube. Once again, if you do take time to listen to the show, please, please, please leave us an honest review. We greatly appreciate it, and we're constantly looking out for them. And if you do happen to have any questions or comments about the show, you can email us at the Legends of Tomorrow Podcast at gmail.com. And if you are a nice person, follow at Gregg Katzman. No, that last part's a joke, but yeah.
But go follow anyways.
It's like being extra shameless.
So thanks, guys, for joining us. This was the Legends Tomorrow podcast. And like I said, let us know your thoughts on the episode also. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.